Hey guys, welcome into the After Schrock. Bear with me here while I get my systems set up and running as well. All right, we got a muted tab there, good to go. All right, so give me a level check, make sure that everybody can hear me okay. Let me see about turning things up or down. We're a little quiet. Let's turn it up just a little bit. Okay, let's see, come on. So I got to scroll down to get to the right microphone here. All right, yep, that's it. 100%. There we go. All right, everybody hear me okay? Just going to make sure that we're good to go here before we kind of get started and winding into it. I don't want to, Winston, thank you. I don't want to get too far into it without, I've done that before where I start talking and I'm going for like 2 minutes and all of a sudden I realize no one can hear me. And I'm like, oh, I got to say it all again. Although the second time I say it, it's usually better. It's more thought out. But anyway, welcome into the After Schrock, guys. I apologize. I'm running on light sleep. I know. I went to bed. We were watching a good show last night. I went to bed around midnight. And usually, for the radio show, I'll get up around 5:40 to get ready and get here in the studio and get everything set up on time. And I just had one of those nights of sleep where you're just continuously waking up every couple hours, and you realize you're dreaming about weird things, and then your brain starts thinking about work and stuff, and then you're thinking about the radio show, and just like, what am I going to do today or tomorrow or whatever, and then I probably got about 3 hours of sleep last night, so I was trying to hold it together during the show because that, when we do safe upgrades, we are taking the frustrations of up to 600 installations of Windows and compressing them into 1 or 2 days on our staff. So it is an incredibly draining event for us internally. But that's why we make the product, so that you don't have to go through those draining events with the interruptions and the failures and everything else. So it really, I'm a little upset. I did find one of the 2 emails that Kevin said he sent. So maybe the first one didn't come through, but the second one did. I'm not sure why he didn't get a response to it, because I know that all the email in the Omaha Service Center was marked as read and responded to. We have it on 3 different computers back there, so even if the front desk is busy and an email comes in, the guys in the back have the opportunity to answer it. So we really have a good system in Omaha for making sure those emails get checked and returned promptly. So, boy, if anybody else had an experience like that, please just shoot me an email and let me know. I'm sorry that happened, but it's not good service, so we have to do something. We have to create a system so that doesn't happen again. But on the flip side, I can't really get too down on my employees for missing an email, given what they went through in the last few days. It's been fun, a fun few days. But the good news is we got through all the Windows 11 ones for the most part. We still have some customers who are running the software. We have a couple customers who are unable to upgrade because it says their hardware is not compatible, but their hardware is clearly compatible. So it's obviously a glitch of some sort. When you click on the More Info page, it takes you to the Known Issues page, where there's a list of all the known installation issues that the Microsoft is working on resolving. So we're going to give it a couple weeks and then have them come into the service center in a couple weeks. It's safe to assume it's not going to automatically install on your computer if Microsoft thinks your hardware is not compatible. So there's no huge rush there. But like my computer at home downloaded it like within an hour of the release. It was incredibly quick. In fact, Alfonso was using my computer at home as one of the test computers to determine if the safe upgrade software, he was testing it basically. We tested on a multitude of different builds and everything to make sure everything is good to go. I had a test preview build. So I technically had a version of 22H2 that was older than the version of 22H2 that Alfonso had. So he's like, we don't have any other computers. No customer should ever have to install it this way. No customer should be in the insider program. But if they are, we want to make sure that this is going to work. So literally he tested every angle on it. And it went through perfectly fine on every test system that we did. And then we launch it, and 20% of the time it doesn't work. And we're like, what's going on? Well, then we start getting into the details of why it's not working. And I would say probably every third Schrock desk, it was because the PC Health Check app wasn't installed on the computer and had never been run. It's the dumbest thing ever. Apparently you run this app and it saves a record somewhere on the computer that your hardware is compatible, and when the Windows 11 installer goes and checks for that, it finds the record, says you're compatible, and allows you to install. Well, this is something that's never going to happen to these people again because now we've installed the PC Health Check app. And once we learned that that was a situation, whenever we did a Schrock test, the first thing we did was we installed the PC Health Check app. Need it or not, we just installed it because it's going to prevent this from happening again in the future for these customers, and that's what this is all about. But boy, it was nuts. I think at one point I personally had 5 different Schrock test sessions going at one time. I was helping 5 different customers, and I was not alone. We can help 8 customers simultaneously on the Schrock desk. We can have 8 technicians connected with 8 customers. So if you do the quick math on that, that's just about every technician that's on a shift in our company can be on a Schrock desk at one time. During Safe Upgrade, the front desks pitch in because they know how to do these updates too. So we get them connected to the Schrock desk, and then the front desk will take over and do that for us, so that the guys in the back can focus on 5 other customers. So we really flex up for the Safe Upgrade. So on one hand, it was a punch in the gut that they split up the software a little bit, because we did have some glitches in the software because we had to rush code it. And so a couple of small things got missed. For example, customers who in the past had semantic endpoint on their computer, even if it was years ago, Safe Upgrade was detecting the remnants in the registry of that installation and telling these customers that they had endpoint and not Sophos. I just got an email about it again today. So we're actively, this is all stuff that's going to be scrubbed out by the time the Windows 10 version comes in. But the reason that those little scraps are in there, are a couple places in the paragraph, it says, when we're installing Windows 10 version 21H2, and then another place it says, when we're installing Windows 10 22H2, so some customers will call us and say, hey, the paragraph here says that it's installing Windows 10, but I have Windows 11. The program was designed for Windows 10, so we didn't go through and scrub every word of every paragraph. Our coders worked on it for 20 hours from a functionality standpoint. So now we're going to go back and clean up the English and the grammar and make sure everything is the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And we would have normally liked to have that done before. We just did not anticipate that Microsoft was going to release the 2 updates separately. And as a result, if we would have run Safe Upgrade with just the Windows 11 update available, what would have eventually happened was some customer running Windows 10 would have run the update, and it would have either upgraded them to Windows 11, which if they didn't want it, or 2, it would have tried to update them and failed over and over and over again, and they would have called in and we'd say, well, it's because you're running Windows 10. Well, then why did it let me run the software? So that's what we had to code it to fix. So that it was we expected it to be a donkey show, and it was. But the good news is I think we're through the brunt of it now. There are still some people out there that are installing the software or that haven't installed yet. Go ahead and do that installation, and get going on that, because a lot of the kinks have been worked out, so you should have a much better experience. But if you do continue to have an issue, we'll install the PC Health Check app over the Schrock desk. There's no additional charge for us to help you on the Schrock desk. If you bring it into the shop, it does cost a little bit extra. It's about $35 extra to have it done on the bench. But if we do it over the Schrock desk, there's no extra charge involved. We don't open a work order. It's not even an official contact. It doesn't burn a warranty. It doesn't do any of those things. So it's good to have that Schrock desk option available if that's something you need help with. All righty. Good morning, Winston, Ronald, Catherine, good to have you. Mary? All righty. Good morning, Al. Roger's back. Sebastian's here. Good morning. Yep, I know who Mark Levin. Do you know who Mark Levin is? I know who Mark Levin is. Have you ever listened to his radio talk show? What do you think of his angry, yelling personality on the show? Do you enjoy it? Actually, that's my biggest critique of Mark Levin. He is a difficult guy to listen to for extended periods of time. He's very passionate about what he believes in, but he's also he has this very angry old man vibe about him. So it's not a fun show to listen to, right? And that was one of the things that I really miss about Rush Limbaugh. He could take an awful situation that you were just distraught about and acknowledge the fact that it's awful, acknowledge the fact that everyone's distraught about it, and then point out the absurdity of the situation and laugh at it. And just that release, that is missing. There is nobody on the political spectrum that comes close to that. You've got Tucker Carlson doing the investigatory stuff, and drawing conclusions and doing things like that. You've got Sean Hannity doing his Sean Hannity thing that hasn't changed literally in 20 years. You've got Dan Bongino is kind of new to the scene. He is something fresh and new. He's not a Limbaugh. He's not a Levin. He's his own thing. Joe Rogan, you got Joe Rogan. He's funny, but he also is like, hey, he's funny. Let's go smoke some weed. Sweet. All right. If that's not your cup of tea, well then, there you go. So it's there's just nobody like Rush, and he's left a huge void in the landscape for people like me that grew up. I don't remember a time without Rush. It was just the key political formative years of my life was Rush Limbaugh, and that he's very much missed, Sebastian. But yeah, Mark Levin, he was the one that kind of made me aware of the Convention of States option in the Constitution. I did not know about that before Mark Levin, so that was something interesting. I've learned things when I listen to Levin. It's just I can't listen for very long because it just kind of grates on me after a while. All right. Good morning, Schrockville. I appreciate that you do not screen calls on Compute This. You deal with callers or a complaint. Yep, we don't keep the riffraff out. We let them on. One of the things that about doing a live radio show is if it's all sunshine and lollipops, it's a propaganda program, basically, if that's the case. You can get your message out, and you can be fake, and you can be fake for a long time before people figure out that you're fake. But if you guys saw my face, like I don't like getting calls like that. I really don't. I mean, on one hand, I'm like, do you know what we went through this week? I want to cry like a little baby boy. And then my logic brain kicks in and says, we failed this guy. We failed Kevin. We did not return his email. I found his email. So I got a copy of it, which means I know Omaha got a copy of it, which means for some reason he didn't get responded to. We failed Kevin. That's that. Period. End of the sentence. His call was absolutely right. 100%. And that sucks. That sucked. It sucks that it happened. It sucks to hear about it live on a radio show. But it is what it is. And if you acknowledge that, you can learn from it and you can get better. But if you hide from every failure in your life, like they don't even happen, you're never going to get better. You're never going to get better. We're expanding our coding staff significantly at Schrock because we don't know what Microsoft is bringing at us for future upgrades for Windows 10 and Windows 11. The roadmap is as muddy as could possibly be. So we are considering several options, including integrating Safe Upgrade into Secure Updater. So in other words, Secure Updater could deliver the Safe Upgrade updates as well as regular updates, potentially in the future, as an added service. So, there's a lot of different things that we're working on, changing and adapting to, and we learn from every mistake that we make. And we get better every time we make them. One of the things that we have a lot of newbies at Schrock right now. Trent, not Trenton, we had two Trents in the Omaha Service Center. Trent has moved on. His last day with us was yesterday. It's when you're a boss and you're saying goodbye and thank you to a guy. I worked the whole shift with him yesterday because he would have had to work alone on his last day. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen. So I came in and worked a Saturday shift with him because we're short, and we put in a lot of hours early in the week because of Safe Upgrade. So we have to make those hours back somewhere. Otherwise, people are in overtime and then, they burn out. So I came in because apparently I never burn out. And so I came in and helped him out and worked a shift with him. And, you say goodbye to the guy, and I'm feeling myself, like my eyes start burning a little bit, and I'm like, I'm not like a super emo kind of like, oh, I'm going to miss you, but, when you have an employee who is giving 100% effort through the last hour of the last day, and you can't counteroffer what he's getting, where he's going. He's got some other potential career opportunities that he's looking toward. It's more than just the money, basically. So he's making a decision that's right for him. And so you're happy for him. And you're sad that he's not going to be there. And you're sad that your customers won't benefit from it. You're going to miss the awkward as hell way he talked to people on the phone. He was not a phone guy. He was a smart cookie, but boy, when he would explain things on the phone, he's a level 1 tech support at Scooters now. And what's going to happen is he's going to get a problem, and they're going to come to him with this like problem, and he's not going to be able to know. He's not going to know the answer, and it's going to eat at him because he wants to fix the problem. But he's just level 1 support, so he's going to have to dish it to level 2 support, and then I guess it's not my problem anymore. I'm concerned that that's not going to be fulfilling for him, and it's going to play out in one of two ways. He's going to get so doggedly attached to these problems that they're just going to advance him through the support. He's going to become level 3 support, like that. And he's got the skills to do it. And we're going to miss him. We're going to miss him a lot in the Omaha Service Center. Steve is coming along real good. Steve's been with us for a couple weeks now. He's doing amazingly well. And we've got Dawson starting in a couple weeks. So, we'll be back up to a full staff, but they're just not the same people. It's different people, different vibe. Chelsea is killing it up front. We basically had a complete turn in the Omaha Service Center, which is one of the reasons why you guys have seen me in there a lot lately. I feel the need to work with this staff and make sure that things are working the way I want them to work, that the energy level is where I want it to. No one can drink Red Bull like I can, and it's how I keep up with these like 25-year-old kids. I mean, I'm 45 years old, guys. I'm starting to feel it. I go home at night, my feet hurt. I'm like, what? How? And then my kids are like, Daddy's home, and I'm like, oh no, please. But the staff is just doing so well in Omaha, and losing. It was like Chelsea. Chelsea's only been with us for about a month now, and she came up and pulled me aside and she said, it's going to be different without him here. And it's going to be different. It's not going to be bad. It's not going to be great. It's not going to be better. It's going to be radically different without him there. And we're going to miss him. So it's one of those things when you have people like that working for you that you are genuinely going to miss, even their quirks you're going to miss. I don't know. You got good people working for you, and that's one of the things we always try to do. We try to deliver good service by bringing good people in. And so that's one of the reasons why when Kevin, said, "Hey, you missed my email," it kind of cuts a little bit because I know Chelsea cares. That woman works. She works harder than most front desks that we've ever hired, finding things to do. Because a lot of front desks, when the work is immediate, all the immediate work is done, they sit on their phone or they play a game or they do something. No, she's actively like, what can I do to close these work orders? Like, is there something I can do to push them forward? What's the status on this person? This one's been in here for 2 days. I told him 24 to 48 hours. Don't make me a liar. Like, she is on top of it. So she's going great there. So, and then this week in the service center, we found out that James in the Papillion Service Center is moving on to a new position as well. I don't have a lot of details on that one yet. I haven't had a chance to talk with him because he put in his notice while he was on vacation. I'm not so sure that's kosher pickles, but anyway, so we got about a week and a half notice. But no, James is another one of those hardworking guys that Frank he just loves to work with the guy because he's just a wealth of knowledge. He's patient and he works the system and he follows the system. And so that's one of the things. We're bringing in new people, and one of the things that you worry about is institutional memory. This is the first safe upgrade that Steve has ever seen. And when we bring in Dawson safe upgrade, well, the Windows 10 version will be the first one he ever sees. So you worry about Steve's never seen a holiday special. He doesn't know what that is, or why it's important. So you worry about institutional memory a little bit. But the funny thing is that the people that are still here, myself and Parker and Marissa and Kim and all the other people that are still there that have been there for the whole long time, they and Chris and Des Moines, we could totally express how cool some of the stuff is that we do. You should see Steve's face when he sees a computer that comes in that a customer purchased in 2011. And he's like, I was in junior high school. And he's like, and now I'm upgrading this computer to Windows 11? You got to be kidding me. This is amazing. Like, this is cool. And it is. It's very cool. It's very different. So we'll be back up to full staff. We got a new hire in Papillion now. We got to hire one more for Papillion, but Omaha will be full staff on October 5th again. Meanwhile, I'll be in there from time to time, so if you need to find me, that's probably where I'll be. But I digress. I went off on a tangent there, guys. But I think it was more like I'm just going to miss Trent. It was good to work with him and to work with a guy who was as solid as he was. All right, Cheryl and Rich are with us. Good morning, Mark. I appreciate you don't screen the calls. Oh, yep, that's right. That's where we got off on the tangent. What's this? 2022 9 cumulative update preview for Windows 10 version 21H1. Yeah, this is one of the quirks, KJ. So after you install Windows 11, it pops up with a Windows 10 update that refuses to install, which is a good thing because, you don't have Windows 10. It's a bad thing, though, because it's popping up, but it'll stop. It'll go away after a couple days. Microsoft will figure out it's stupid, and then it'll go away. The other thing that's funny, though, is you install 22H2. So literally, we download the media creation tool, and we make a flash drive. It is a brand new, latest installer, all the updates. You plug it into the computer, and you install 22H2 on Windows 11, there's already a cumulative update. It hasn't been out a day, and there's a cumulative update already? Was there an update before you put out the update? I don't know. So that's fun. Yeah, so that Windows 10 update, if you're on Windows 11, don't worry, it'll go away. The cumulative update preview for Windows 10 21H1 is a cumulative it's basically like a service pack for 21H1. You want to install it if you're on Windows 10. Good morning, Steve, Roger, Richard, good to have you. Ronald, interesting to watch what's happening in Russia and Iran. Yeah, all right, for those of you who aren't watching all the geopolitical stuff, this week Russia mobilized, well, they did what Putin is calling a partial mobilization of 300,000 Russian men to go fight in Ukraine. Now, the funny thing is if you get caught protesting the war, you get arrested. And while you're in the detention center, funny thing, you get handed your paperwork to be volunteered. Because, of course, in all your prior military experience, because they're only going to recruit people who have prior military experience. So basically what's happening is anyone who is undesirable is getting sent off to the front. Anyone who's protesting the war is getting sent off to the front. The flights out of Russia are completely sold out. You cannot get on a plane. In fact, it got to the point where Russia had to make it illegal for men between 18 and 65 to fly out of Russia. Finland has had so many Russians come for vacation that they are talking about banning Russians coming into the country because there are too many of them. They're all there. They're going to Georgia. They're going any place they can to get out of Russia to avoid the mobilization. So I am certain that there's a staple of people who are like, rah, rah, ree, let's go kick him in the knee. I'm sure that there's some people who are wholeheartedly behind, whatever Putin is doing. Okay? So I'm not trying to say that this entire mobilization is junk. But based on the anecdotal reports of who is getting mobilized, number one, it's not just people with former military experience, which is what they said it was primarily going to be. Number two, it looks like, again, anecdotally, it could be a lot more than 300,000 people. Try like 1.3 million people. So there's that Soviet adage that quantity has a quality all its own. Well, you can throw a lot of people at the problem and maybe you just overwhelm the problem. And yeah, a lot of people are going to die, but we didn't really want them anyway. They're undesirables or war protesters. Their morale was trash anyway. So yeah, we sent them in first. So the enemy could run out of ammunition on their bodies before we send in the real boys. It's something. And of course, the Putin is setting up the straw man here that Russia will use nuclear weapons to defend Russian territories, including territories confiscated from Ukraine previously that are considered Russian territories now, like Crimea. You come into Crimea, we can nuke you. Well, then they're going to have a referendum vote on these other states to join Russia, and of course the referendum is a sham, and they're going to vote, and they're going to join Russia, blah blah blah. Well, then that makes those Russian satellites, which means they can use nukes to defend them. So you better not mess with us, or we're going to nuke you. That's the new one now. Will he do it? More interesting. Here's something you probably haven't heard about, because it's probably not true. It's probably not true. Okay. Chinese social media was on fire last night about President Xi being deposed. Probably not true. Apparently, a lot of flights were canceled all of a sudden. and there was an 80-kilometer military convoy spotted. And President Xi was just returning from his foreign trip out of the country, the first trip out of the country since COVID. Why hasn't he left the country since COVID? There's been a lot of social discontent in China. There is some concern that if you leave the country while it's in discontent, you may not be able to get back in, if you know what I mean. So he returns to the country, and there's all these rumors all of a sudden that he's been deposed, that there's a military coup. The evidence was anecdotal at best. Every major serious news outlet said there is no corroborating evidence that this is actually happening. The report was that that President Xi was under house arrest and had been removed as the president of the PLA. So, wow, imagine if that was actually true. Now, there are some people who say maybe these rumors are being spread intentionally to root out people who would support removing President Xi from power. People who are like, yeah, get him, and they're like, oh yeah, get that guy, So who knows? Who knows what's going on? Or maybe it's a faction because he's trying to get reelected for an unprecedented third term as chairman of the party. So maybe factions that do not support him want other people to believe that he is vulnerable and therefore weak, and therefore maybe we shouldn't elect him. So this could all just be kabuki theater. But there is no doubt that there was a military convoy, that there were flights that were canceled, and that the president was coming back to China. And Chinese social media was actively speculating about whether or not he had been deposed by the military. That in itself is huge, that those posts weren't nuked immediately by the government, the Great Firewall. So interesting stuff happening in Iran with the revolution there, which I predict is going to end the exact same way as it did under Obama. Why do these people always rise up when we have a president in power that won't do anything to help them? Basically, they're going to rise up, they're going to get shot down, and then everything's going to go back to normal, and the temperature on the kettle will get increased a little bit more, and the people in the kettle will boil a little harder, and the next eruption will be more violent. This time around, the stuff in Iran, if you haven't heard what's going on there, they have very strict laws about how women need to wear burqas, and they have to have their head and their face and their hair covered. There's morality police, basically, in Iran that go around and enforce this. And there was a young woman, 22-year-old girl, who apparently had some of her hair showing out of her burqa. And she got hit in the head with a club, and then she got beaten a little bit, and she got detained, and then, gosh, unfortunately, she had a heart attack, and she died. Wow, what a coincidence. It couldn't have been the blows to the head or the beating that they gave her for not wearing her hair covering right. That 22-year-old girl, maybe she had the Pfizer shot, and maybe it gave her a heart attack, But yeah, she had a heart attack. Yeah, real deal. No one believes it. Everybody knows she got beat to death. And that's what the protest is about. It's about this woman getting beaten to death about the way she wore a head covering and how that is too much. It's interesting if you think about Iran as an occupied country, a country that's been occupied by an Islamic terrorist theocratic government, and the people are just like underneath them trying to be free but don't really have a way to fight it. It's an interesting way to look at it. Alrighty. Rush had the ability to bring up facts from the past with accuracy. Yeah, he did. He did, Ronald. He would bring up stuff and then tie it together, and you're like, oh, I forgot about that. And like, oh, that's so stupid. Or you imagine what the fun that Rush would have had with the Martha's Vineyard thing, where they deported these 50 migrants get deported from Martha's Vineyard within 24 hours to Cape Cod, but Martha's Vineyard is a sanctuary city. And we deported them because we have no jobs here. It's not even the on-season. But yet there were literally 50 help wanted ads in the newspaper. The exact number of people that came off the plane, there were jobs for all 50 of them. But they didn't have the opportunity to apply because they got deported to Cape Cod. Just imagine the fun that Rush would have had with that story. Just insane. He'd have had somebody all upset with him. All right. Okay. I like Jesse Kelly's sophomoric approach to politics. I found him by accident and try to listen to him as much as possible. Never heard of him. I'll have to give him a listen. Hello, Mitch. Good to have you. So what are the enhancements to the Windows 11 update? Okay, so basically a ton of security enhancements. Graphically, not a whole lot. They changed the task manager, which you're not going to really notice unless you open the task manager. So ending programs is a little more complex. There's a lot more data and information in one window. They combine the command prompt. So if you're used to opening command prompt and typing in DOS commands, they combine that with PowerShell, which is a super advanced command prompt. So when you do your Windows 11 upgrade, sometimes we have to run some PowerShell commands in order to make that happen. Like I said, cosmetically, there's not a lot changed. Under the hood, the security changes are pretty intense. There's a lot of really inside the weeds things that have changed. Not a lot of new features aside from ransomware protections and things like what we talked about on the show today. The new protection that comes in. This is a new thing that came in 22H2. These are the big new security features of Windows 11 22H2. It's like I knew someone was going to ask this, and I had the article up and running. Okay, I'm reading down here. I'm looking for like a bulleted list. Are you going to give me a bulleted list, or are you just going to make me read the whole damn story? You can make me read the whole damn story. Okay. Well, I'm not going to read it all out loud, but heavier reliance on artificial intelligence to determine an allow list in the Microsoft Trusted Store policy. Application control, which is why we have to sign our applications with a code signing certificate so that they don't get blocked by Windows automatically. So any hacker that makes a nasty little program has to go somewhere and get a code signing certificate and that code signing certificate is, my name is Bill Smith and I reside at this address, and they're going to ship me a flash drive to my address to confirm that's where I live. Then I'm going to take that flash drive and use it to sign my code so that if anyone runs my virus, it'll say made by Bill Smith. It's supposed to give us an extra. So if you get a program that says unknown publisher, you should be concerned about that. Most of the applications we use today are used by millions of other people. Malware is seen only on a couple machines. We plumbed the core of the operating system with this enhancement mechanism or enforcement mechanism. Prior to Windows 11 22H2, this was a policy that you had to write up yourself in an XML file. If you can imagine, pretty tricky unless you're an enterprise person. It blocks the most script vectors from the internet, and partly informed by the Office team's decision to block untrusted macros from the internet by default. So basically, Windows 11 22H2 has completely rewritten the book on what is allowed and what is blocked, and it's using artificial intelligence to learn on the fly rather than having a hard-coded XML file list of everything to allow or block. Let's see. Windows 11 22H2 took the idea further. No automated PowerShell scripts. No automated LNK files, shortcut files. No automated Visual Basic from the internet. Anyone with an eye on the threatscape knows that these are some of the favorites. Windows 11 and Smart App Control blocks those threats. So what you're going to have now is a lot more automated blocking of stuff to make your Windows 11 computer a much less attractive target than, say, a Windows 10 computer. So people on Windows 10 are going to see an increased number of virus attacks. People on Windows 11 are going to see a decreased number of virus attacks. Oh, let's see. Here we go. More security enhancements. Turns on virtualization based. In the first Windows 11 release, Microsoft turned on virtualized based security. VBS is what we talked about. How every program runs in its own little bubble. Only for the latest AMD, Intel, and Qualcomm processors. He's seeing more use of VBS in the future here. Microsoft is turning on Credential Guard by default. In Windows 10, this is not available. It's using the VBS in order to create credential protections. Microsoft is turning on protected processes like Local Security Authority's Subsystem Service, LSASS, for new Windows 11 devices. It stores third-party credentials. With this protection, Windows will only load trusted signed code, making it more difficult for attackers to steal your saved passwords. So there's a reason I didn't go over a lot of these on the radio show. A lot of these are really deep in the weeds. Your LSASS protection and your virtualization bubbles and everything else. Nutshell, security level to the extreme. 22H2 introduced so much new security to your computer, it's not even funny. Windows 11 is really trying to separate itself from Windows 10 in the way that it operates from a security standpoint to give people an incentive to move off of Windows 10 onto 11. Because the more people who move to 11, the higher the cost of ownership is for people on Windows 10, because you're bearing the brunt of an increasingly heavy number of attacks, unfortunately. All righty. Oh, got to scroll up. Okay, here we go. Greetings from Tom in Kansas. Good to have you, Tom. I heard flights for men out of Russia were costing $5,000. They were one way. So, yeah, one way flight was $5,000 or 5,000 euros, which is about the same as $5,000 now. 300,000 or 1.2 million. They don't have the supply lines to support the current troops in Ukraine. See, Ronald, you're assuming that they're going to support them. You take 300,000 deplorables and you push them across the line with guns at their backs. Just like the old Soviet days, they didn't have enough rifles for everybody. So they gave the guys in the front rifles. And as they told the guys in the back, when the guy in front of you gets shot, you pick up his gun and you keep going. I mean, it's going to be stupid. The other thing is, part of this is Russia has taken more territory than they can hold with the military they have. And then on top of that, the military casualties they've inflicted, Ukrainians estimate they've killed 56,000 service members, Russian service members, and wounded 150,000 plus. So, of course, they don't tell us how many numbers of people, how many Ukrainians are dead, and Russia doesn't confirm those numbers at all. They haven't released a casualty update since the initial opening days of the invasion, where they said they lost 1,000 people. But yeah, they don't have the supply lines to feed them, but you don't have to feed them if you're going to kill them. They don't have the supply lines to equip them, but you don't have to equip them if you're only going to equip the ones in the front. Or, more importantly, are these garrison troops? So are they troops intended to hold positions who aren't really expected to do any advanced forward fighting, but are there to become the supply lines? Are they there to drive the trucks? Are they there to move the equipment? See, if America was doing this and we activated the National Guard would move into that capacity to free up other soldiers to move forward. I'm not sure that Russia is having a serious problem mobilizing. They're talking about this mobilization will be complete by December. It's going to take that long, and it's only a 2-week training course they're giving these kids. So that's telling me that the pipe that they have just isn't there. So it's not like you're going to suddenly have a 300,000 person flood at Ukraine. You're going to have 300,000 to 1.3 million people entering service in the winter months near Russia. So it's going to be frozen tundra. There's not a lot of fighting that usually happens in the winter around there. There's a lot of holding, a lot of defending that happens. So maybe these guys are just literally there to hold on to what they have so that these referendums have a chance to gain some kind of legitimacy among the people that are being ruled over. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Who knows what's going to happen over there, but it's scary as hell. Thor, would you recommend making a flash drive? It doesn't matter, Ronald, if you do it with a flash drive or not. If you're going to go to the Microsoft website and download Windows 11, you can just update your PC with the Update Assistant. That's how we would do it on the Schrock desk if we were going to remote in and use the Microsoft method for doing it. The flash drive is great if you're planning on upgrading multiple computers. It saves you from having to download it over and over and over again. So like in the shops, we make flash drives so that way, we don't spend 40 minutes downloading every computer. We can spend that time instead installing and get you your computer back faster. No more shortcut files. No more shortcut files from the internet. So in other words, if you get an email with important invoice.lnk, well, you double click it and it's a shortcut that takes you to something else that can execute random code on your computer. So no more link files from the internet. You can't download those from the internet anymore. You can still use the ones on your desktop just fine. All right, I haven't thought about what you said. I hadn't thought about what you said. Scary. Yeah, it's, like I said, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows how many men they're going to get or how willing they're going to be to fight. They may go over and they may just surrender. They may run across the field and surrender. But you get shot in the back or you get shot in the front kind of thing. So I don't know what's going to happen, guys. I genuinely don't. You would think that the counteroffensive was very effective. It took back a lot of territory, but now Ukraine has the same problem that Russia had. Russia was able to take the territory because it's a lot of territory to defend. And now Ukraine has to spread their forces out to make sure that Russia doesn't counter the counterattack. So you get the gist. But the problem, I think, for Russia is they don't have the forces to do a counterattack, and that's why they're calling up these forces to get in the mix. The question is, how is Ukraine doing on their manpower? We just don't know that. They called up everyone to call up already. So everybody who's been called up has been battle hardened throughout this process of fighting. The people who couldn't handle it already can't handle it. They have already been weeded out. The people who are good at it are still there, and they're very good at it. And the people who are smart enough to keep their head down when the shells are flying are still alive, and they will still keep their heads down when the shells are flying. But now that Russia can't literally march their troops forward behind a shield of falling artillery that the Ukrainians can't counter, now the Ukrainians can fire back and hit those artillery pieces. So the next step will be Russia will fire the artillery from within Russia, requiring the Ukrainians to fire into Russia to destroy the artillery firing in. Now you're attacking Russia proper. Now we can use nukes, or now you're attacking Russia, and now it's Mother Russia, defend your home country. Fine, these Ukrainian Nazis are attacking us now in our home country. We knew this would happen. That's why we struck first, that kind of thing. So the propaganda war is going to go in full tilt. Yeah, it's incredibly unstable. Not to mention that, incredibly unstable. Speaking of incredibly unstable, we've talked about all the wars now. Have you heard about what's happening in Italy? For the first time in a very long time, someone from the far right. Now, when you talk about Europe, European politics and American politics are different, okay? When we say someone from the far right in America, we mean like a MAGA person, or a conservative Republican, or maybe a libertarian, right? When we say people from the far left, we mean a progressive or a liberal, or someone along those lines. Big government, that kind of thing. In Europe, when you say far right politician, you mean fascist. That is the definition of far right, and far left is communist. Okay, so communists and fascists are different. They don't like each other because they're on opposite ends of the political spectrum. Now, in Italy, for the first time in a very long time, someone from the far right has a good chance. She has a great chance, fuzzy flying by, of being elected president of Italy. Her policies sound very much like America First policies, except Italy First. The EU has a problem with that because the EU has pumped tons of money into Italy to keep them afloat. Their economy is in trouble and everything else. They have all this debt. But she's like, no, Italy first. And we're going to do these things. And if you take the money away, maybe we just leave the EU like the UK did. The EU can't afford to have more countries leave. So they're kind of in a pickle. Their currency is falling in value compared to the dollar because the dollar is strengthening because we're raising interest rates. So if she wins, she's literally campaigning. Her campaign posters have the Mussolini flame on them. Now, I'm not saying she's Mussolini and she wants to kill Jews or anything like that. That's not where I'm going with this. What I'm saying is we're seeing the rise in various countries around the world of nationalistic tendencies. Now, nationalistic tendencies are natural. I want to protect what we have. I want to guard it from corruption. So her platform, for example, is, and she's blunt about it, so forgive me, this is not my position, this is her position. No more Muslims. No more immigrants. No more burqas. Italy first. No more Brussels. No more EU. So those are the things that she's saying, we do these things and all of our fortunes will raise. So we can have great debates as to whether any of that is true or not, but that's her position, and she's campaigning with Mussolini flame. It's like, wow, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes, doesn't it? So you've got nationalistic stuff happening in Russia, nationalistic stuff happening in Ukraine, nationalistic stuff happening in Iran, nationalistic stuff happening in China, nationalistic stuff happening in Italy. I mean, it just goes on, and it's spreading. And some could argue nationalistic stuff in America. The MAGA movement, some could argue that that's a nationalist movement. So, yeah, it's one of the hallmarks of nationalist movements is there's winners and there's losers. And, I don't know, there's a part of me that's like, this is life, guys. There are people in life who win and there are people in life who lose, and you will not always win and you should not always lose. But when the stakes are high, like empires, what would you do to not lose? And that's when things get scary. That's when we get wars and stuff like that, and nuclear wars and cross-border incursions and stuff like that happening. You got Greece wanting to go to war with Turkey. Have you heard about that? They're exchanging fire between boats. There's an active problem going on there. Turkey has notified the EU of their intent to have a military relations with another member of NATO. So it's like, oh my gosh, the world is becoming a very dangerous place. Yeah, and it's just you're living through history right now. You're living through history. This isn't like the 90s where everything is rosy and sunny and you can just go watch Friends and go to the coffee shop and have a good time. This isn't 2008 when we had the huge financial crisis, at least not yet. There's some people who are saying Credit Suisse could be the Lehman for this cycle, but we'll see what happens there. Watch that one closely, guys. If you see negative news about Credit Suisse, clench up quick. All right. Okay, well, I got a lot of comments here while I was talking. Check out the movie Enemy at the Gates, World War II movie, if you want examples of cannon fodder of Russian troops at Stalingrad. I'll have to check that out. I haven't seen that one, actually. Just so you know, the National Guard certainly does provide combat service support, logistics, but for a significant part of the Iraq and Afghanistan fight, much of the force was Guard. That's good to know. I knew that there were National Guardsmen who fought. I didn't know that they were the bulk of the force that fought. So that's kind of concerning, actually. Like, where were all the other guys? Like, hey, citizen soldier, come over here for a second. We're going to need to borrow you for a moment. But at least, and you want to believe that your country would gave your guys the best equipment. We didn't send your guys out there with no guns and stuff, but I do remember stories of people sending body armor to their sons and daughters because the body armor that was provided was not as good as the body armor you could get commercially available. Stuff like that happening. But that's good. Thank you, Steve, for letting me know that. Did you hear about the FBI changing the classification of a green space near the Capitol building? Reports to the FBI changed the classification to restricted after the January 6th and based that on what they're going. The thing about the January 6th event, how do we still have people in jail with no trial 2 years later? How? How is it possible 2 years plus after the time that the event happened, we still have people in jail that have not had a trial? And then the stories of the people that come out of that jail just make you question your humanity. I mean, it's like, we went through what? I mean, I don't know. I was having a conversation with somebody, and I was like, do you ever just feel like there's just an incredible amount of evil in the world around you? And you can go through life for a long time and just not even be aware that it's there. And then one day you notice something, and it leads you to notice something else and something else and something else. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, damn. There's a lot of evil out there, like a lot of evil. Like these people that are like, pedophilia is not bad. We shouldn't stigmatize people who enjoy looking at children. What? Don't look at my children. That's all I got to say at once. You won't hear me say it twice, if you know what I mean. But it's the evil around you. And I was talking with a guy about it, and I'm like, how do you even fight that? How do you fight an evil like that is so permeating the system that, have you heard the Bill Gates corn song? That is evil. Have you heard the song, the corn song? Tell me you've heard it. If you have not heard the Bill Gates corn song, you've got to experience it. Bill Gates corn song. Because see, now we've all got our shots and everything. And Bill Gates has purchased a ton of farmland, you see. And he's using that farmland to make genetically engineered corn. And so, Yes, he's going to save the world from famine through his genetically engineered corn. So I'll post a link to this story that has it's a story, but it has the video, the YouTube video embedded in it. But yeah, it is the cheesiest, most awful song you've ever heard in your life. It talks about corn juice. Corn has a juice. You're like, I guess I never thought about juicing corn. You know, corn juice, really? Other than Nebraska, I've never juiced corn. Like, I've eaten corn, and yes, you get a little juice on your chin when you eat it, but I've never seen that as one of the staples of corn. Is it corn juice or is it butter? I don't know. It's delicious. That's all I know. So yeah, Bill Gates makes the corn song. There's the evil all around us in the world, and I was like, how do you fight that? Like, the more you try to fight it, the more you have to compromise. And then eventually it's like, are you just becoming the evil that you're trying to fight? Or do you need to become the evil that you're trying to fight in order to fight the evil? And then decide to not be evil after you win? Because that always happens, right? And it was one of those things where it's like, the guy I was talking to was a religious guy, and he just was like, you have to have faith, and you have to have faith in your life and the people around you, and move forward, and trust in the greater plan. And boy, it's hard to trust when you see some of the stuff coming out of the World Economic Forum and this ESG garbage and stuff. And Europe is waking up, thank God. When did you ever think that Europe was going to wake up before America did to something? But they're firing up the nuke plants. They're like, let's get it going. We're going to UK lifted their fracking ban. You're going to frack those. We're going to frack that gas, baby, because we need it. And all of a sudden, it's like people are waking up that there are some things in this world that are real. NFTs are not really among them. But there are some things that are real, like energy. Energy is required for everything. And yes, you can get energy from the sun, and yes, you can get energy from the wind. But you cannot generate the kind of energy that we need to power our modern economy from the wind and solar alone, at least not with the technology we have right now. So California announced that they're going to get rid of all combustion engines. Also, guess what else by 2030? No more gas water heaters or furnaces in your home. Those are illegal too in 2030 in California now. No more, they don't want any gas appliances at all. You're going to electric everything. But you can't charge your car on a Thursday because there's not enough power. So where are you going to get the power to run everything electric? I mean, the sun does shine a lot in California, but that's a lot of solar panels. It's like a desert worth of solar panels. And then what about the ecology that you're destroying when you put the solar panels out? All the wildlife that doesn't get the sun, and the plants and the ground and everything else that doesn't get the sun. And then you've got the other concerns. What happens? Those panels burn out. They don't last forever. So it's not like you put up a solar panel and you let it sit for 50 years and you have power forever. It's a curve, right? So after year 7, the panel is at 30% efficiency. And if it takes you 5 years to break even on the panel, you're getting 2 years of power at marginal efficiencies net for the amount of energy you put into making the panel, which came from fossil fuels. I mean, Europe is waking up. Hopefully we will too. Do you know anything about the iOS update making iPads, iPhones lose their battery? Yeah, actually we talked about this last week, Aaron. What you need to do with that is, it happens after every update. So what you need to do is when you do the update, first of all, do it with your phone on a charger. The update is incredibly intense on Apple phones. Also, Apple likes to make, they like to have the surface of the water be calm and smooth, even though they're ferociously working below the surface. So your iPhone will look completely normal and calm and kosher, but it's hot and it's slow and the battery is just draining really fast. That's because in the background, it's downloading apps, it's updating apps, it's optimizing apps, it's doing all these things up to 48 hours after the update. So the best thing that you can do is when you install the update is to install the update if you can, like in the late afternoon or evening. Put your phone on the charger, let it stay on the charger all day, all night, as much as you can the next day, and hopefully after that point, everything would have normed out and your battery drain will go back to normal, but it happens after every Apple update. So it's not unique to iOS 16. Okay. Same thing is happening in Switzerland. Political offices. Really, I hadn't heard about that in Switzerland. I'll have to look into that. Do you know anything about the Iowa? The world is getting crazy, Aaron. People in jail. How can we have the Republicans not doing anything about it? Oh. There's a fight going on right now to define what it means to be a Republican, I think. There are Republicans. I mean, all politicians are concerned with maintaining their power, staying in power. I would suspect that when you first get elected, you're not so concerned about it. But the longer that you're there, the harder it is to imagine yourself not being there. Kind of like, running a business. You run a business for 23 years, and I try to sit back and say, if I retired from Schrock and handed it off to somebody else to run and just retired from it, what would I do? Would I putz around the house? What would I do? Would I go get a job? Where would I get a job? What kind of job would I want? It's kind of like that, So we have Republicans who don't know politically which way the winds are going to blow. So people who are politically minded are trying to hedge their bets a little bit. So if the push against Trump is successful and they're able to convict him of something, anything that they can convict him of, then he can't run again. And then, yay, we've saved the world from MAGA. And then Ron DeSantis comes in, who's just a more polished Donald Trump. And by more polished, I mean not as bellicose. He comes out and he does the same thing. But maybe Republicans can get behind him because he's not Trump. You see, it's a stupid distinction. But then you have other Republicans who are so pro-Trump that it's almost to the point of I can see your Kool-Aid mustache. Do you have any independent thoughts in your brain at all? You have to ask this question. And then you got people in the middle. And the people in the middle are the deal makers, the people who think that everyone is a rational actor. They're not rational actors. They're not doing. If you need to turn it up, you can turn it up, Raj.
I have to. We have a mess up.
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry about that.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. This is the After Schrock. It's no big deal.
I know.
So anyway, they're there because the courts were locked down because of COVID. Well, there's nothing in the Constitution that says you can keep people in jail because of a pandemic. The Constitution says you have to give them a speedy trial. So, are these people going anywhere? Are they going to leave the country? Are they going to flee? Could we put ankle bracelets on them? Do we have to hold them in a gulag where they're doused with pepper spray? I mean, really? I don't know. That's what gets me so upset about this. We're releasing criminals who kill people. And they kill more people. And we release them again. But these people, these are political prisoners. They're in jail for political reasons. They're in jail because it serves the narrative that they need to serve through the midterm. Maybe after the midterm they get out. Maybe after the midterm there's some kind of conclusion to all this January 6th garbage. But needless to say, there are people who were charged who weren't even in Washington, D.C. that day. I mean, you were charged with trespassing, but you weren't even in Washington, D.C. No, I was at my daughter's wedding. She got married. Here are the pictures from the wedding with me in them. I wasn't in Washington, D.C., but yet they charged this person? I mean, it makes no sense. Let's see. I've never heard of Chris Hansen, Sebastian. Let's see. California, no more diesel trucks. Also, that's going to go over real good. Biden seems to have a lot of magical thinking. He does a lot to a lot of his wants are actually possible now. And that's, I don't know. There is something to be said for the attitude of, if you build it, they'll come, or the impossible is, everything is possible if you just work hard enough and try hard enough. So if we create a crisis large enough, I think the gamble here is that we'll find a way to make this renewable energy efficient enough to get what we need, because we have to. But what they're not counting on is the fact that every rational person out there is saying, Well, in the meantime, can we just turn the gas back on? Because, like, it's right there. And we have all the infrastructure, and we know how to use it, and it's safe, and it burns real clean. It's good for the environment, and I can be warm. While you figure out the whole EV thing, can we turn the gas back on? That's what they're not counting on. And that's what rational people, the vast majority of Americans, whether they consider themselves left or right or moderate or conservative, they are rational when it comes to reality. And when it comes to the reality of you can't have a gas-powered water heater anymore, or you can't have a gas-powered furnace, you have to have an electric furnace. You know how much electricity an electric furnace uses? You gotta be kidding me. The drain on California does not have the infrastructure. They don't have the wiring to support that. Forget the power generation. They can't deliver it. It's crazy. It's just insane. So eventually, rational people are going to come to the forefront when the irrationality becomes reality. When people are cold and hungry, that's when they're going to say, like, how did we get here? And they're going to look at the people who brought them here, and they're going to kick them out. Unfortunately, that's what it's going to take. And for once, I'm really glad I live in Nebraska, where, yeah, they're trying to raise my property taxes 9% again, and then act like I'm an idiot well, we have costs too, sir. You need to cut back like everybody else needs to cut back. You need to cut your freaking costs. Sorry, you know. Oh, let's see. Yeah, I would drive Kim crazy if I was putzing around the house all day. Let's see. This is the last chance Republicans will have. They do nothing. The Republican Party is dead. You know, how many times has that been said, Ronald? I mean, what's going to replace the Republican Party? Are you going to go vote Democrat if the Republicans don't do it? And that's the problem with the two-party system. The other problem, though, with the two-party system is that if you go to a three-party system, peeling enough Democrats off of the left is difficult to do. What we're seeing is a backfire right now in immigration policy. Democrats assumed that when they brought Hispanics into the country that they would vote Democrat, that they'd be liberal. Actually, what they're finding is that people of Hispanic heritage actually are pro-life. A lot of them are Catholic. A lot of them have a moral code and compass. A lot of them are hard workers that get a little upset when you take all their money from inflation. They're regular people that when reality becomes irrational, they act rationally. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these votes come out. Did you hear about Washington County in Wisconsin announced yesterday that they have allocated funds already for a hand recount of the vote? The Dominion voting systems are going to run the vote, and then they're going to hand recount the ballots. So they'll run through the Dominion voting system and compare the totals. They have already, this is for the upcoming election. So Dominion is on notice. If there's any funny business with the voting machines, we will find it. And when we find it, it will be obvious, and it's going to really look bad because it's going to be like, see, we told you so, right? And if there is no difference in the voting tallies, well, then everyone who says Dominion's messing with the systems and whatever, they're obviously wrong, right? I'm going to throw one caveat with that. If the totals match and suddenly Wisconsin goes full-on Republican, then you know there was something going on with the Dominion systems before. Because it's like, Wisconsin, Republican? What? Neck and neck gubernatorial race in Wisconsin for a Republican governor. Or excuse me, that's in Minnesota. I apologize. That's in Minnesota. Neck and neck race for governor of Minnesota, being a Republican. The last Republican governor was that joke Jesse Ventura, the wrestler guy that got elected governor, and he ran as a Republican. All right. Oh, gotcha. It's been a long time since I've seen that show, Sebastian, that Dateline NBC show where they would, pose as online as some kid and basically have some guy come meet him and then bring out the Dateline cameras like, you're a pedophile. And then the police come out and cuff him and it's like, great TV, But, yeah, we can't do that anymore. Imagine if NBC did that show now. Imagine if they did that. So, what was that show? There's a docu-series on Netflix airing on Jeffrey Dahmer. So if you ever wanted to watch a complete docu-series on the life of Jeffrey Dahmer, you can do that. Netflix categorizes the shows that they put on there. And there's category, thriller, or not sci-fi, what's it, a gore kind of thing. And the last one was LGBTQTIA. Because a lot of people forget that Jeffrey Dahmer primarily targeted African American gay men for the people he killed and ate. So the Netflix classified it as an LGBT show, and the outroar, Google it, the outrage was just everywhere. This is not representative of the, we don't eat people. So they took it down like immediately, but the damage was done. But it was one of those funny things where, can you imagine if Dateline did a show like How to Catch a Predator now? It would not go over well. It wouldn't go well at all. All right, guys, got to wrap it up before I fall asleep. Thank you for joining us for the program today. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for your patience with us in the service center this week. It means a lot to me. Your business means a lot to me. It means a lot to my staff and my family. We are here because you need us here. And the moment that we take that for granted or abuse that privilege and that trust, we won't have it anymore. So we're not going to do that. So keep the faith, guys. We're bringing in really good people over at Schrock. We're getting them trained up to do good work, and we're building teams. We're in the office building teams, and that's why we get everyone to come to work. All right, guys. Have a great afternoon. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.